As ever, it's always my second take on my intro. I always fluff the first one, so... Hello and welcome then to another Rugby League Down South podcast. Although you may tell by the... no, I'll do that again. See, it's always a second take. Always a second take. Hello and welcome to another Rugby League Down South podcast. This week we are in the pub. It's an official pubcast, and for the first time, this is the Pubcast 3, but this is for the first time that we've actually been in an actual pub. I think the first one, I can't remember where we were for the first one. The second one was in Mark's office, in the post office, and but no, we're in an actual pub for this one, which is good. And the place is called Truckles, near Bloomsbury, opposite the British Museum. Yeah, so really nice place. It took us right down in the bottom corner in the boardroom. Nice big table, big candelabra as well. I'm trying not to singe my hair behind me. But we've got a number of Rugby League Down South fans. I'd say mostly Broncos fans, but I know a lot of people in here go to see many of the other sides as well. I've already been talking to a few people who go and watch the amateur game. We're here to debate the big topics, the issues, I guess review 2014 as to how it went. Hopefully that won't take too long, but more look forward to 2015 and the issues and the things that are ahead for the Broncos, for the Scholars, for Oxford, for Hemel, for the Championship 1, etc, etc. So we'll get round a fair few topics in the next hour, and just for the purpose of you listening, we're all obviously sat around in a bit of a circle, almost a bit of a squashed oval really at the moment. When people are going to speak, they're going to come and stand up, and we'll rotate around the room, so we'll hopefully give you an idea of what's going on. But the first topic I wanted to start with was London Broncos relegation from Super League in 2014 will be a positive for Rugby League in the South. Discuss. I mean, what do we think? I mean, how will it be? And we might as well start with Steve Newcombe from the London Broncos Supporters Association, because they've helped organise this podcast. All the people in here, I'm pretty sure, are... if not members, they probably will be by the end of the night, will they, Steve?
Let's hope so, yeah. And membership is free, don't forget. Just go to lbsa.org.uk and sign up. Plug over. For me, 2014 was a pivotal season, and it was a season that we completely dropped the ball. And the myth that going down a league so that you can regroup is just that. It's a myth. It might work in the M62 communities that have got a deeper set game, but if we really want to be a top flight sport, professional sport in this country, we need London, and it's 2015 or bust for me now, I think, for the game at the top level, so that kids in London aspire to play at the highest level.
So you're saying that 2015 has to be successful for Broncos, they've got to get back in Super League?
Yeah, we've got to get back in Super League. I'm just really angry that we're not still there. The 1 year where we really needed to work hard to stay there was the 1 year we took our eye off the ball, and you know, it was almost an unmitigated disaster as a season, as everybody will attest. The Supporters Association is a bit of a mutual support organisation, really, for the people that have had to be there week in, week out, and some of the guys in this room who go to all the away games as well. And the 1 year where we really needed to stand up, all we needed to do was come 12th, and we failed. And it's going to be a real big task to get out of this league this year, but we've got to do it.
I've heard a lot of people this year tell me that this could be an opportunity to regroup and rebuild. I mean, anyone in here that supports the argument that this could actually be a good thing for the club and for the future? Ian.
Hi, I'm Ian. I've been with the London ever since the very first game at Fulham, at Wigan. I think for the past 3 years we've been basically punching above our weight. I think we have been struggling in Super League, and I think with the crowds dwindling, I think this year, for the very first time, I can see real positive growth in the club. For the past few seasons, we've gone with the preconception that we are going to struggle, and I think the last season, at this time last season, we were all sitting here wondering if we were still going to have a rugby league club to go to. Players were leaving by the droves. I think at this time last year we were in the high court for winding up. So I think by hook or by crook, we've now actually got ourselves a much more better standing with the club than what we had before. We've now got ourselves a coach who I believe has got a lot of passion within the game. He's recruited well, and hopefully, I think with the promise of our academy side last year, now under 19s, who performed really, really well in a lot of games last season. We finished second from bottom, but in a lot of those games, we took the opposition very, very close to the end. If we can gel them, keep them at the club, and with further expansion, further players coming in, I don't see any reason why that we have now a solid platform to re-establish the club. And also the fact being is we now have an opportunity where the club could be basically challenging for honours, which means that the fans who last year probably wouldn't come because they're probably going to sit there and think we're only going to go and see a game where basically we are going to get walloped. Let's make no bones about it. Now we could be at a place where we can have exciting times ahead, so we can get them back to the club. So I think we are now at the place where we should have been last season, and we can now re-establish the club not only in the sport but in the capital, and get the fans back into the ground as well.
If anyone wants to say or chip in at any point, then just stand up, come and stand next to me, and I'll get you next on. I mean, Ramo, you're already standing next to me here. Mark, I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think in the last few seasons there's been a real disconnect between the supporters. I mean, to me, the people in this room are the club, and then there's been a team on the field. Last season, I felt, was the first step towards reuniting people. I feel that there's going to be a really bright future ahead for us all. I feel that now there's a real connection that's growing again between supporters, players and management. And then next season, we're going to be a far stronger team as a result. We're going to lose some of the best London talents, that's for certain, or it's already been lost, because they want to remain in the Super League. We've lost quality players like Matt Cook, and that's Leia Vea. But I feel that Joe Grimer is going to be the man who transforms us from mediocrity, which we've been for the last 12 months, and maybe for the last 6 or 7 years, into something where, supporters and players are going to be really happy because we're all pulling together and we're going to see lots of wins next season,
I mean, it's not often that I sort of put my thoughts into a podcast, but for me, it just seemed like the club have bottomed out. They're on the way up. I mean, there's a lot of positivity around Israel at the moment, whereas maybe a year ago there wasn't.
Ron here. You make it sound like there was some grand plan, Ramo, to kind of go down into the Championship and reorganise. I don't think it was anything of the sort. I think the owner just lost heart and was persuaded to change his mind, and we're all very grateful he did. The one thing that London had to arrest if they'd stayed in Super League is the losing culture at the club. There's a terrible losing culture at the club. Good players don't perform at our club.
Has that been addressed now with Joey?
I hope so. I wish Joey had been the coach 5 years ago. Maybe we wouldn't be in this position now. And that would be something to reflect on. But at least looking at the positives, we can now start to say, right, the losing culture, we're doing something about it. We're bringing players in and we're going to play as a team. And if that starts to change next year, then that would be great. My only concern is I think the Super League clubs will be too strong in the middle eight of the qualifiers. And it's going to take one of them to suffer financial difficulties like ourselves and Bradford in order to turn that round.
I was going to get onto the Super 8s a bit later on, see if we can explain it or sort of figure out what Broncos are going to have to do in particular next year to win promotion if it was going to happen. I mean, we're talking about the positivity. What are the positives for this coming season? I mean, there's a squad that's been assembled far sooner than previous years or anything like that. I mean, what are you looking forward to next year?
My name is Alan Elric. We've got youngsters that have under 19s that have played international. We've got good players that have come in, and we've got a great coach. Obviously, Joe Grimer took over from a very difficult situation. The fan base went down a bit. As you say, we are the fan base, and we need to get the people back. The only way we're going to get the people back is by winning. And I believe that we didn't have the winning culture last year. We lost so many games by small margins because we didn't have the experience. This year, Joe Grimer's got that experience back into the squad. We've got youngsters, we've got the older people that can bring the youngsters on, and I believe that London will make the M62 realise why London should be in the league. London, as a capital, should be. Same as Catlands, and I hope Catlands next year they've made some astute signings, they do well. But London, there's so much potential in this capital. We've got to say a massive thanks to David Hughes. David Hughes has kept this cup alive, and I really appreciate what he's done. He's bailed us out left, right, and centre. Next season, I believe, I've already booked all my holidays. I'll be banging that drum. I'll be sounding that light. I'll be shouting, London! You bet. I'll be there with the likes of Ramo and the rest. We'll be supporting you all the way. All we expect is the best performance, and I believe we can get in the top 4, and I believe that we can beat some of them Super League teams, because we're not as bad as a lot of people up north really think we are. I think we've had a little bit of a blip. We're going down to the Championship, but boy, you watch us next season. Alan Elric, I'll be at every game, and I'll be shouting, London!
Wow. I didn't need to wear earphones for that one, did I? Thank you, Alan.
Mark Raymond here. I was just going to say on behalf of all normal people, he may be a single supporter on his own in one stand.
Fill it as well with that noise. I mean, you talk about the performances as well and what you want to see from the club next year. I mean, what else do you want to see from Broncos? They seem to have changed a lot of things, regrounded and started to rebuild again. I mean, what do you want to see them do next year? But, Ron, you talk about reconnection with the fans and stuff. I mean, there is obviously still a long way to go before this club get back to what they were a couple of years ago. No matter, build on that and go further. Who wants to chip in on this?
Mrs. R here, or Kate, as other people might know me. The third Ramo. I think.
Hold on, where do I come in this ranking?
I don't. Well,
1 or 2. That's a choice. That's a choice to make there, isn't it? 1 or 2.
Oh, well, yeah, 2 maybe. That's slightly embarrassing.
That could go off
Can we just
people.
get back to the subject matter?
I've lost my missus on the radio.
Should we try that again, Kate? Okay, here we go. So, Kate, what do you want to see the club do? Do more of?
Right. In terms of more of, and just in terms of context setting, I follow football and rugby league. And I also have got into Bolton Wanderers Football Club by default. With
Terrible.
Mark. I know, shocking. What I would say is, for me, and I've always said this to Mark when we exercise together at night and stuff like that, when we have our conversations, it's about the match day experience. And that's what I think we lost at the Stoop, and that's what I'm hoping we'll gain where we are now at the Hive. There is something, and Bolton have just got back on their feet in the last few games as well. There is something about winning. I do think we need to get back to Super League, but we do need to start getting that winning culture back in. There's no question about it. But for me, it's just about getting that match day experience, about winning again, and actually getting a feel-good factor back. That, for synopsis, is from me, really. So.
Back on the original question then, you mentioned the importance of being in Super League. I've been of the thinking for many years that you have to be in Super League if you're going to do anything within London and Rugby League. I'm not sure I still think that. Does anyone think strongly either way? Does anyone think that potentially being in the Championship for London makes no difference to various fans because they didn't pay too much attention when they were just in the Super League?
Well, I'm Paul. I agree with what you just said. I'm a Leyton Orient fan for my sins and a 13-year London Bronco fan. I totally agree. We've got to start again where we was. We've disconnected with London for years anyway. So we should take no.
So would it make a difference?
It would make a difference to go down because if we do start winning, people might be reconnected again. We might get more column inches. We don't get them enough anyway, as it is. So if we do reconnect with the club, we've got to start it, and now's the opportunity to do it. We've got to reconnect the pathways of the club, the players, the fans, the enjoyment. As Kate said, definitely the match day entertainment. It's about a day out. You meet people. It's a good day out. And then we connect with the same people who used to come many years ago and watch us at Brentford when we used to have 6,000-7,000 people. We're now at 1,400 people. Where have those people gone? They're still rugby league people in essence. Reconnect with them. That's the answer. Let's go down, start winning the game. People might come back, see the new us. That's the answer.
Another Ian. There's 3 Ians in the room today. There's 3 Ramos. It's getting very confusing at the moment, isn't it? But another Ian.
London has a sort of throughput of people, because I found a friend at work and I started saying, I'll go and watch the Broncos, and he said, oh yeah, I went years ago, and then he'd moved out of London, so not accessible to go, but actually it's a place where lots of people move to. They might come just for work or for a short period, but actually it's hooking into those people. And his thing was, yeah, I used to go to Brentford and it was really good entertainment, you know, a decent offer, good night out, take a few mates. And actually, if you can get back to that, because I've done the same with taking mates along, and it's do you want to come and watch a game, but it might be a bit one-sided. And there's some friends will say, yeah, actually, it's quite good to go out and have a few beers and a bit of food. But if you've got a decent chance of seeing a fair fight, that's all you're really after.
And it's going to make no difference, is it? Being in Super League and Championship, you still bring your mates along. You might even say they're going to win.
Yeah, I think there's some good games to be had, because having seen some of the games that we were in the Challenge Cup with some of the Championship sides, there are some good Championship sides there. And I think it's then a case of rebuilding that, getting the fans in, and then if you've got the fans behind the team, then there's nothing to say that off the field you get the work in as well, and there's that genuine push to get up. Whether the Super League structure and the league structures then stymies that is another question. But actually, if you've got things happening, you'll get people in the door, and there's a feel good around it.
Alan Elric again. Every Super League club, they love coming down to London. They absolutely love it. They make a 3-day trip of it, yeah? I know we might be a bit more expensive down here, but they can save. London to me, you've got everything, you know, you've got good hotels. Now the Barnet, if we can survive in Barnet, and Barnet Football Club, I've been watching them as well, yeah? They're going to get promoted next season. I honestly feel if we can get everything together, if we can get the fans back out the woodwork to come and get us, and we will when we start winning, that'll make things tick.
Let's trot around the other side of the room.
Hiya, yeah, it's Janet here. I was just going to comment on the point about the Championship and the Super League. I think one of my concerns is that you won't get enough supporters from the Championship to be able to create A, the atmosphere in the stands, B, the money coming through for the club. So I think what's really critical is that, yes, getting into that winning culture, but then being able to move back into the Super League. I also think that a lot of more casual supporters won't turn up if it's, sorry to say it, Mark, teams like Dewsbury or Batley that we're playing against. But they come for the big names. They come and watch Leeds, they come and watch Wigan, they come and watch Saints, they come and watch Hull KR, those sorts of teams. I did have to get that name in there. And I think that's really crucial. That for Super League, that's, if there's to be the game growing in the city of London, then they need to be in Super League. I mean, it's really encouraging to see what's been happening recently with all the youngsters turning up for the trials at Broncos, and the numbers there are really good. But that's because there's been a base set from the work that's happened. A long period in the Championship, and I think the interest will start going and you'll start losing that. So, yes, maybe winning culture, but then getting back into Super League is crucial.
For me, it's a bit of a different slant. So I've only been a Broncos fan for not so long, but a Rugby League fan all my life. So since I've been watching the Broncos, they've not been doing well, but I've been telling a lot of people that I see in London, I've been telling about rugby, and they've not been interested in coming to the games because they've seen the scores. So I think next year is really positive. At first I was gutted because I won't be seeing the teams I'm used to all my life playing, but next year I think it'll be really positive because people that I know that have been wanting to come down to the games haven't had an interest looking at the scores, but next year that'll be really positive because when there's going to be a good game, I'm going to be able to get them down. I think London is really like crucial to have a rugby league team in, so it's going to be really important to get people to come, and to get people to come you need to be having good games.
Does anybody in here think that it's not going to be a positive thing in that the club is still going down? I mean, if we were to have this conversation a year ago, you know, things would die. Ron, you're saying that you think still on the way down?
Because London should be about glitz and glamour, and that's why they were fast-tracked in Super League in the first place. I have to say the thought of playing Workington and Whitehaven isn't going to excite the media as much as anything else. And the presence of rugby league in the media is critical to success.
That's Paul again, the Orient fan, London Broncos, for quite a few years there. I'm just going to go back to the point just raised there earlier. It's about marketing the club. If we're going to play a Yorkshire team, let's have a Yorkshire day out. If we're going to play a Lancashire team, let's have a Lancashire day out. Let's have a Cumbrian day out. Cumbrian Nation, there's enough of them down here. Let's have a Cumbrian day out. And that also is part of building the pathway to new fans, reconnecting to the game as well. It's not about our opposition. I mean, let's be honest now. Warrington have announced a friendly against Toulouse in January. It's all out there. Does anybody know about this already? That's their marketing strategy. Warrington versus Toulouse. Strategy, Super League 2018, 17, whatever it is. That's what London needs. Exactly the same mentality. Doesn't matter about the opposition. It's about turning up and being part of underpinning London Rugby League itself.
Phil, I've been a rugby fan of the Broncos since '95 when they started in Super League, and I agree with what Ron said about us being fast-tracked in as part of it, but the club over the last few years has completely moved away from the fan base, especially since the whole Harlequins debacle, and since then they've not even really cared about the supporters. In the Championship, they need to care about the supporters. I know lots of people who've just given up on going. They need to get them back. It's not just about winning, it's the club engaging with the fans again. And if they do that in the Championship, we will be a success. Not just reliant on bringing down people from up north, grow the fan base, get them back, really engage in that.
We're getting very many nods and yes and agrees from the rest of the room.
Well, Michael from Wood Green, how you doing? No, I think that Janet took my point earlier about the amount of kids this week that we're training on trying to get into the under-19s and the other teams there. It's about 180 people. That's the only way that London will grow rugby league at the Broncos and at the Scholars is produce and keep producing their own players. There will become a time when we actually keep our better players down here because they actually want to stay down here because they're successful teams. This week we've seen, which I find quite hard to believe, that the government and anybody else who can get it are supporting NRL, a team in this town, which I think NFL, NRL, whatever, But
there was talk of an NRL team as well not so long ago.
But it's kind of like, why don't we support the best game in the world in our town that some of it is our hometown, some of it are people like me down from the north? Why aren't we bothering about that and backing the Broncos that way instead of supporting 53 players aside at American game? And it's because it's all about money.
Well, I think it goes to show as well, I mean, we've always said that the profile of the game needs London more than London needs the game in a strange way. So, you know, if the game is going to go anywhere and if the game is going to get to a level where people like the government or the London Council will say, yes, let's support a rugby league side here, it's when it gets to a level that it's noticed around the world or around the country like an NFL team is. Absolutely. Or an NFL game is.
But again, the other thing this week, Cardiff Rugby League, they've announced that there's going to be Cardiff City. They're trying to get a club, so that's the capital of Wales.
Still early days, but...
Still early days, but they've got 4 or 5 players when I checked it out on the website. But the fact that there is expansionism elsewhere within this country, along with Coventry down in Scholars League, has got to be a good thing, and we've got to keep pushing forward with that, producing our own players, expanding the game to the Midlands, more in Wales, hopefully Scotland as well. They're having a good European Championship, and if they win that, and just keep plugging it, because it is the best game in the world.
Let's have a quick show of hands. Who agrees that if London aren't promoted in 2015, then it will be an equally negative thing? I mean, who thinks it's crucial? Let's change that. Who thinks it's crucial that Broncos are promoted in 2015? That's probably 70% of people in here. Aaron, you put your hand up then. Why?
I think, going back to what Janet said about the amount of youngsters that turned up for the trials, if London isn't in the Super League, then I think all the young players will just be using Rugby League again to keep their fitness up. To go back to Union, because the Union clubs are in the top flight. If London's not in the top flight, then I can't see the youngsters being interested in Rugby League.
And we've talked about the youngsters, previously. It's important that they do continue to breed those. What are they going to look for in order to stay and, for the club to hang on to them? That obviously has to be Super League at some point, but would you not have thought for the next few years, potentially, would it be all right if it was a championship team? It just becomes a stepping stone rather than the pinnacle?
Yeah, I think at first it won't make any difference. We've gone down and the youngsters have still turned up for next season. I just think if London isn't promoted in 2015, then it's going to become very expensive for David Hughes. I think the club wanted relegation to go down and rebuild, but if 2015 is a failure and we don't go back up to Super League, I think that's going to get very expensive for David Hughes, and the interest could dwindle.
It's interesting you say wanted. I don't think the club wanted it. I think the club very early on thought that, okay, it's probably going to happen and we'll deal with it, and accepted it. Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, who's an expert on the Super 8s as well? Because what I want to just lay down is quite exactly what has to happen to this club in 2015 if they are to promote. Steve, come and explain to me. Because, it's a process that on the outside you'd go, that looks all right. You can get promoted through that, but it's going to be a lot more difficult, isn't it?
The Rugby Football League are marketing it as every minute counts. The reality of the Super 8 is everybody's playing for one game. The people who are in the Championship are playing for one game, and that's the so-called £1 million game when they have to travel to the worst Super League team in a one-off playoff.
But this is the thing. That's potentially how it would work out if the world was so predictable that better teams, in inverted commas, beat the lower teams. There is a possibility that when you've divided into the Super 8s, and anybody think that Broncos aren't going to make the Super 8s or the middle 8s? We're all going for top 4 at least next year, which is, I think, reasonably sensible. But when they're in that 4, you've then got, 7 games, 4 of which will be against Super Leagues. If you beat one of those, which, is that out of the question?
Well, yeah, because in the Challenge Cup this year just gone, Lee nearly beat Leeds. But they didn't beat them, they nearly beat them. But that was a one-off game where everybody was built towards it. We're in a salary cap sport. The 4 teams that are going to be from Super League are going to have twice the salary cap that us and Bradford have got, and we've got £300,000 more than what the other Championship teams have got. And even in a 7-fixture league, that tells. You might get yourself up for one, which is why the reality may be in the Super 8, the Championship teams have to beat the other Championship teams in the Super 8 and then take your chances by travelling to Wakey or whoever it is and hope that in the one-off game, that's when you can turn them over. So our whole season is about one game. So it's not every minute counts, 80 minutes count.
And so let's just go back to that previous vote. If you had your hand up to say it was crucial, just put your hand back up. It's crucial that they were up. Who of those people who thinks it's crucial that they do go up thinks that they can potentially get promoted this year? Or because I know I'm so, but or likely to, or yeah, okay. So most people are reasonably. Again, it all remains to be seen, doesn't it, with the squad. And what we'll do now, we've just done over half an hour. We'll have a quick break. I'll press the stop button. If it doesn't remember it, we're doing all that again. Well, the good news is that he did record the first half an hour, so we've not had to do it again, and you've only been listening to the first take, not the second take, so no, we're all good. I want to talk about 2015 now, and let's look forward to what the club or what Broncos have, and also we'll obviously dive down more into the other divisions and Championship 1 in particular. Mark Rammond, we make it clear, Joey Grimes' squad for 2015. What do you think? How will they do? What type of player has he recruited, and has he done well?
I feel he's got remarkable value, given that he's got a salary cap of half the Super League salary cap. What I'm really proud and pleased about is the Italian signings he's made. Ray Nasso is a fantastic hooker. We've seen him beat England. We've also seen a great prop Josh Cordoba is going to be a great signing. What I feel he's done, he's signed guys between 25 and 30 who are in the prime of their career and for whatever reason, might be eligibility, have been overlooked by Super League clubs. If you also look at Richard Mathers at fullback, he's not a Super League star, but he's going to be the first fullback we've had in many seasons who I feel is actually dependable, who can return the ball with interest, he can tackle, and he can take the ball through. I'm really proud and pleased about the signing of Reece Lovegrove. I think he's going to be a tremendous signing for London Broncos. I really feel that next year we're not going to be overpowered in the forwards. And since Gareth Haggerty left 5 or 6 years ago, I felt each season when you compare the London Broncos forwards against the opposition that we've got a weaker forward pack. I mean, even when we had Tony Clubber and Louis McCarthy-Scarsbuck, Tony was in the centres and Louis was on the bench. We never started with a good pack. But this season I actually feel we're going to monster the championship teams.
So how well will this team do? I mean, I think it's probably no secret. The club have said, well, we definitely want to be top 4. We're going to aim for top 2. And realistically, that's where they should be, isn't it?
Absolutely right, Ramo. I mean, we're not going to play a decent team until round 3. And for me, the games against Bradford and Lee are going to be the ones that determine how we finish this in the coming season. I believe we can beat both of those teams, but I believe we'll finish 3rd. Because I reckon we'll be inconsistent and having an entire new club in the first 6 games of the season. I think we'll maybe lose at somewhere like Waite even, and we'll be looking at it. It'll be a little bit like Super League 1 where St Helens and Wigan were sort of split by a draw at London. I think it'll be like that, but we'll be close. The real thing is the business end of the season is the top 8. We'll be in the top 4, and we need to knock off a couple of Super League teams. I don't think we'll do it, but I'd love to see us do it, of course.
A big thing about the club for 2014 has been the high. Oh, sorry, chip in on that first.
Sorry, it's Paul again.
The Orient fan.
The Orient fan. One thing I might add to that, Ramo, is the fact we're unsure now of the dual registration situation for next year. So you have the likes of Adrian Morley now as a Super League prop who can play for Swinton, for God's sake, you know. And that's one thing we have to look at because we're unsure next year what we're going to have. So even the likes of Featherstone can bring in someone, you know, who are Bradford going to be joined with next year, you know. And that's one thing we've got to look at because that's one thing I don't think it's been answered yet, really, is dual registration could actually crucify us. So we'll see where we go with that next year. So,
who wants to chip in? Go on.
One of the things that impressed me about Joey Grimer is he's been ruthless. He's told a lot of players who've been around the club a few years, you're not good enough. And he's got rid of them. And for the first time, we've had that sort of ruthlessness and saying, I want players who are going to win for this club, and I don't think you're quite up to the mark. And that's given me tremendous amounts of encouragement.
One big thing for 2014, and again for next year, is the deal at the Hive. Kind of pulled off at the last minute last year. There was talk of it potentially sort of collapsing towards the end of this year, but it is going ahead for 2015. What does everyone think? The Hive, a good facility? Do you think they've got a future there? Do you think that it's good? I mean, okay, we'll come back to you in a second.
Phil again. I think the Hive's a fantastic facility. Like most London supporters, I travel an hour and a half to get there, but I still enjoy going there. But it's the old thing with London. Are we going to be there? It's short-term planning, making it up as you go along. We've got another year there. But there's no, what after that? You know, you're never going to build the support if people think, oh, well, they're just going to be there for a year and then gone. And that's what really crucifies us. No one comes out from the club and ever says, we are going to be there how many years? Never answered.
Is that, though, because they can't? Because they don't own it? They're only signing short-term. I mean, they have no choice, really.
Yes, they have no choice, but you know, it's almost like, well, we're still back to this whole making up as we go along. And if you really want to build the game down south and have a London team, they need to know, the supporters need to go, right, we're going to be at the Hive next year, the year after that, year after, or where are we going to be?
And you can do a long-term deal. There's nothing to say that any of the clubs that we've been at wouldn't be up for a long-term deal, because actually you've got 5 years, 10 years of knowing that your stadium's got football and rugby league or rugby union, rugby league or whatever. You've got more business going through it, and then you can build that up. because even they tried it at the Stoop, and we went in the posh seats for one of the cup games because there was an offer on, and the place was full. And you think, well, actually, you could repeat this quite regularly, and you then start to build more up, and it's business for whichever way you've cut the deal. I'm sure everywhere would be up for a long-term deal, but I suspect the club's probably taking we're not sure what we're doing, let's take baby steps approach. Whereas actually you do need a bold approach of, right, we've signed a 6-year deal to be at X location, let's get on and build it. And if then it proves a success, you've got something and you re-sign it and extend it. And if at the end of the 6 years you find, actually, no, it's not working, you look for somewhere else, but you've taken that long approach to it so that you can build things up.
Who was shaking their head saying that the Hive isn't the place to be, and it's not? Okay, both of you, why not?
Transport system's not that good. It does take a long time to get there.
So where do you want to be?
I think...
How close to a tube do you want to be, or how close do you want the stadium to be to win in London or wherever?
Well, at the end of the day, I think if London start winning, people will start coming back, because people do travel a long way anyway. Even a away game is 200 plus miles every week. But I'm quite prepared to do that every week to support the club.
Haven't they tried to negotiate a 20-year deal at the Hive?
As far as I'm aware, the 20 years was possibly in relation to some training facility rather than the Hive, although nothing to say that they're not trying to negotiate a long-term deal with the Hive. They are looking at things like that, but I thought the long thing was about a training facility.
Well, I'm going to go back to my Orient days now. Paul the Orient fan again. I feel we should have gone to Leighton Orient ground share. Olympic Stadium. Even if...
Well, they didn't get the Olympic Stadium, did they?
No, we didn't get it, that's right. We could have had the hockey stadium. It's about long-term longevity of the club. Orient now been taken over by an Italian multi-billionaire, one of the richest guys in the country. We could outbuy a stadium now, but then that's the day out. Sell the Olympic Stadium. Westfields is a shopping centre. Day out watching rugby league. You know, that's what you need to do. Take in the culture of East London, maybe, whatever that may be. But that's what you need to do, longevity plan-wise. The Hive, I don't think is the answer. Long term, definitely not the answer.
Just going back to what Al said, I disagree with the transport facilities. They've got 2 underground lines. If one's down on one weekend, the other line will run. And I work for London Underground, so I know that. And it's 20 minutes from Baker Street, 30 minutes from Waterloo. I mean, the transport links are a lot better, I think, because it's got an underground station. I think London Broncos has to have a London Underground station.
Well, I would agree. I think that, people always talk about transport issues and where they can get there. Playing Sundays and engineering works might be a different issue for this year. But, Mike, I want to talk to you because you obviously go to Scholars quite a lot. I know there's a few other people that go there as well. In terms of Championship, Stadia, they're getting a new place, aren't they? What about the potential, I know it was talked about, of Broncos and Scholars sharing that facility in the future?
Well, this week the photograph of the new stadia came out. The pitch is half ready. There are actually floodlights, so Friday night lights will have them. And the clubhouse is being done, so it's the new river for next year. I think this idea of the Broncos and Scholars sharing, it won't happen. The only way it will happen if Rugby League in London implodes so much that it can only support one team, and I don't actually believe that's true. I think that the Hive for the Broncos is a superb venue. It is on the tube trains. Like Aaron said, there are 2, dependent on which one's down on a Sunday, that we're going to have to put up with. But I think that's the way forward, and I think that the 20-year deal, if they can do that, Dave Hughes' legacy, give them a few quid, keep us there. Fantastic, because they're fantastic people at Barnet as well. And that, for the bottom line, I like football. I like watching that level of football. Do it, and I will go and watch Rugby League there as long as London play there.
You mentioned an interesting name in David Hughes. I think everyone would agree that he's done sort of amazing things for the club, and if obviously he wasn't there, then the club wouldn't be there at the moment. So you can maybe look at it from both sides of the coin. But the worry is at the moment, isn't it, that if he's not around, or he decides that that's it, time is up, that's it, isn't it, Steve?
Absolutely not. Yep, his sacrifice is probably second to none in the game. But where are we now? Where are we going to be in 5 years? And for me, one of the problems we've got is we're called London. And in a lot of respects, that gives carte blanche to move from place to place to place because it's all in London. And it gives us an excuse to fail in some respects. For me, because our roots are Fulham, I think we're a West London and South West London club, and I think that's where we should be. And if we'd have been successful in that venture, we would now also be looking at building a club in East London and actually having a Super League London derby. But we've let ourselves down in that respect.
But if David Hughes was to walk away and say enough is enough, I mean, are there investors out there? Should they be getting on board now as well?
I think I'd love to be in a position where we can start having a dialogue in an adult way between the club and the supporters about where we're going to be in 5 years' time and where we're going to be in 10 years' time. As you know, Ian, we talked about a supporters' trust at the start of the season. And personally, this is not a supporters association position at all. Me personally, I honestly believe that a supporter-owned club could build a long-term, sustainable Super League club. I don't think you need a sugar daddy to be successful. You need a lot of hard work and you need vision. And if we had a succession plan into that sort of thing, I think that from the core of the people in this room and building on from that, we could really build a fantastic club under the Broncos banner.
It's Paul again, the Orient fan. Slightly different to what you said there. We have a lot of decent East London Rugby League, some very well-known clubs. It's a 2-hour journey for me to a home game, quicker to go to Wakefield and Warrington. Well, let's really put it out there. Let's do all 13 games on the road. See where our support is in London. Let's really do it. So north, south, east and west, you can have 3 each. You know, there's the Charlton, Gillingham's, Fulham's, West London's, Watford's and wherever.
The players would hate that. The players would hate that.
They're based in one place
No.
in central London.
The players want a place that they feel familiar with and comfortable.
Yeah.
Honestly,
well,
they do.
I think the supporters want somewhere where they know that they can go to as well. I think the stability is going to be so crucial for the club. Without that sense of stability, without that sense of where the club is moving, it's going to be really hard to attract players in of the quality. It's going to be really hard to attract the supporters to keep coming back. I mean, we keep talking about, you know, people travelling 2 hours or whatever, but, you know, I really struggled to turn up at the Stoop when the atmosphere was down and when it was taking me 2 hours to get there. I'm far less willing to do that. I'm much more keen to do it when it's a bit of a shorter journey, if possible, but if I've got a real sense that the club is going somewhere. And in order to go somewhere, we need the stability.
Yeah, Alan Elric, Ian, we need honesty and a bit more dialogue from the club. We do need a long-term future, and if we've got a long-term future where we're going to stay, then people might come along. It definitely needs more marketing. There's so much, you know, if we can get back up to Super League and get some decent investors in London, which there's so much money in London, you know, I'm sure we can go places.
Lots of big ifs and buts though, isn't it, with getting back to Super League and if there's more money involved?
Hello, Romo, Mark Raymond here. David Hughes is obviously the club's greatest supporter. However, his support is seemingly fickle. In 2009 and 2013, he's wobbled to the point where the club has gone into the new season with a disgraceful squad in terms of quality. You know that he can't be relied on in the long term. We must find a new investor. If we were to get off to a poor start next season and say, you know, maybe lose 4 out of the first 8 games, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he started to distance himself from the club or pay players off. So we do need a new investor, that's for certain.
What about this 5-year plan then? You know, I spoke to Joey Grimer in the year and he said, you know, he's put out this plan of where he thinks the club should be in terms of the playing roster and, you know, the things that he's responsible for, but looking further afield as well. I mean, what do we think in the next 5 years? Where do we want to see the club? I mean, you know, what do you want to see happen to them?
I mean, I love the way Joey has set out his 5-year plan, but unfortunately the club are not necessarily building the foundations for him to build that on. You can have the playing roster, but what is happening with regard to the whole structure of the club? Where is it going to be in 5 years? That is the big, huge question mark that hangs over it continuously with rugby league in London.
It's Paul again from East London and Orient. One thing we do have to look at as well is the long-term plan of Super League's TV deal. We know where the money's going to be. That's set in stone. We can't go away from that. The Championship level, we don't. That's going to be renegotiated in a couple of years. So I think that's the plan we've got to look to, is where the Super League money comes in the next TV deal. That's our longevity of plan. But that's what we need to plan for. First year back with extra TV money, hopefully. You know.
Hello, Mark Knowles, commonly known as Dewsbury. My sort of point of view is that we do need a long-term deal somewhere, and not to put the mockers on sort of a thing. Are we getting to a situation where we get into Super League at the end of the season and we haven't a ground? And this is the big worry about the club. There's no long-term planning. Yes, the Hive's all right. The facilities ain't bad. Yeah, the pitch could do to be a bit bigger and stuff, things like that. But are we going to be there for the next 10, 15 years? Because if we're not going to be able to build the junior level up and things like that. We've got to be sticking in one place. We've got to get into bed with some investors, and we've also got to get into bed with another big sports club in London, or reasonably sized sports club in London. Where it's a rugby union club, and there's only one left in London now, is Saracens. That'll never happen. Let's look at some of the football clubs in London who are going to get new grounds, and put one possibility. Somebody said Brentford. Brentford's not going to happen for a long time. One that might happen in the short term, Wimbledon. Do they have the same sort of culture as rugby league fans? Maybe. And that could be a good thing for the future.
Right, Ian again. I'm a Brentford fan as well, so I know that the ground's going to be built in about 3 or 4 years' time. But the one problem that we've got is you've got to try and convince the chairman or the owner of that football ground that we are a viable team, a viable club, because I'll guarantee you now that if Wasps weren't going to Coventry, they would have gone to somewhere else. If Brentford were wanting a rugby club and they had a choice between Wasps Rugby Union Club and London Broncos Rugby League Club, I'll tell you now they'd have gone for Wasps. So it's not a case of trying to find a long-term base, which we all know we need, but it's trying to convince an owner of the football club that we are a long-term viable plan.
Again, Paul from the Orient again. I'm a Leighton Orient fan. Going back to what you just said there, let's look long-term. Was it NRL or NFL? They want to come to London. Let's buy into their plan. It doesn't conflict with the rugby league season. They need training facilities, pitches, the whole 9 yards. What are they going to do? Let's maybe buy into what they're going to do. If there's no one available now, let's look longer term and see what's available.
Ian, when the club became the Broncos and Barry Moranta took over ownership of the club, he said, we'll be playing home games at Wembley in 5 years, right? So let's not get carried away with ourselves. The thing is, we have got the greatest athletes in the greatest game, but we need to work together to deliver an environment that fits them players. The real thing that angers me in the last few years is a player like Robert Purdom should have been playing in front of a full stoop every week, because his skill and expertise deserve that. And we're letting our players down. And if we don't get a long-term plan together, then in 5 years' time, as people have said, the youth is going to start to throttle away, and we're going to be back in Crusaders mode again, playing another and going from week to week with photocopied team sheets and stuff.
As far as I'm aware, Wembley do need some more games, don't they, to try and make up a bit of their money. So you never know. Might need a few bigger crowds. And I think Brentford Stadium, they're due to move in about 2017. I think the work's already underway. So again, it's a possibility of something in the future. Before we do any other business, of which you can chip in with anything you like before we finish, just want to talk about the Championship 1 teams and the other Rugby League Down South teams. If anybody wants to sort of chip in on this, then do let me know, and we'll get cracking. But I mean, where do you start? Well, Michael, I mentioned Scholars Things to you before. Scholars disappointing year. Hemel getting into the playoffs again. Hemel the top club now in the South. I mean, it's going to be difficult, isn't it? It's going to be, as far as I'm aware, Championship 1's going to be pretty much North and South. It's going to be regional almost before you get to the regional break.
Yeah, I would have liked it to be in a regional league anyway, so Scholars might have had a little bit more of a chance. But as Ian said, Hemel did very, very well again last season. But I think the problem they don't have the depth of the under-19s teams and other teams to produce their own players. At the London Scholars, it's going to be new facilities this year. The pitch is half down. The clubhouse is being redone. Hopefully we get the first-team players signing, re-signing. We've got a few irons in the fire of people who may or may not come to the club. But I think it's a positive season for the Scholars, because last year, not good on the road at Enfield, which was a great facility to go to, but it just didn't quite take the amount of supporters it should have done to carry on with that. But I think back to the Broncos thing, Dave Hughes is one business model for rugby league in the South East, and Hector McNeil is another business model. Now, I think the Hector idea is organically build your club, and that is building year on year. All right, last season wasn't great, but the previous 2 seasons were fantastic. And I think, again, the only way forward is to produce your own players, create a club, and stay in the same place. And Scholars have got that at the New River.
And do you think that the strength of those southern clubs, you could look at it and say, if you're an outsider, that they're not all too strong because they were the bottom clubs in Championship 1 for this season, but do you think that the fact that those clubs are there, they are becoming more sustainable? Hemel having success, which a couple of years ago when they're playing in the National Conference, it is amazing, really. Scholars, bad year, but you'd have thought we'll build, new stadia or new pitch which they'll be playing on. So, things are progressing forward with all of the sides, and even, South Wales, who had a blip like the Broncos off the field ahead of the season for this year, seem to build throughout the year and again are laying stronger foundations. I think the All Goals are due to announce a new coach as well tomorrow. I mean, there's so much going on. It does show that this sport surely does have a future outside of where it's traditionally been, and that future isn't too far away.
No, I don't think it's too far away. Just as I said earlier, Cardiff City Rugby League Football Club trying to launch another club in Wales, and you've got again Oxford. I just worry about them with the amount of northern-based players that they tried to reduce last season, but they still had some, and their coach has left because he's northern-based. Hopefully people in Oxford can rally around that and get behind the rugby league team. Again, Hemel were fantastic. I went up there several times and watched them beat Scholars. And again, South Wales Scorpions, the only 2 wins they got, they beat Scholars when we went to the Cardiff Arms Park by a bonus point. But I absolutely think that Scholars, getting the right people in to support the people who they had last season, getting a little bit of consistency, and the bottom line is cutting the northern element, because people travelling doesn't work. You've got to have local or local-ish in London based players who can train now 3 times a week, actually know who they're playing with and go forward with it. And I think Paul said it earlier about Jules. Jules could kill, or had killed the Broncos. Jules killed Scholars last season and everybody else. So hopefully the RFL will have to take a different stance next season with the 3-8 system that they're introducing, because hopefully it'll be longer term loans rather than dual registration. And look at Keighley.
Right, we'll be ready. We're doing any other business in a minute, so if you've got anything you want to chip in, then shout. Just want to come back to you, Steve Newcombe of the London Broncos Support Association. Without sort of turning this into a Rugby League Down South interview, how is the Supporters Association going? It's obviously been your first year. Have you been pleased with sort of the reception? Again, it started, as you say, with an idea of being a trust and a fan-zone club. It didn't have to come to that, but that's something that you'd like to build towards, that you could support if needed.
Yeah, I like to think that the association has been a big factor in starting to turn Broncos from a team to a club. I think the 2 best days we had at the Hive this year, one was when we announced our Hall of Fame, that the club bought into, to be fair, but it was our day, and the hospitality suite at the Hive that day was full of association members. And the other good day was the last game against Bradford Bulls, where again we presented the Player of the Year awards I was so impressed about with Matt Cook's attitude to that. He was genuinely pleased to be recognised by the supporters of the club. So our aim when we started was to perhaps put on a couple of dues, maybe get a day out. We didn't get the day out, but we put on a couple of dues. We've got some plans to do a couple of socials in the off-season, try and persuade people in the Hive that we're not the enemy within, that we are actually there to boost the club. And so, it's, as I said, it's free to join, lbsa.org.uk. We're up to 150 members now. People are still joining as we speak. We're running an online survey at the moment that Aaron designed. That's getting a very good response. We're doing things.
And just give me that website address because you read it very quickly and I didn't have time to write it down. Don't know about anyone else.
Okay. lbsa.org.uk. Membership is free.
London Broncos Association.org. Sorry, lbsa.org.uk. All right, I think I can remember that one. And Michael, you wanted to chip in?
Just to follow on from Steve and the London Broncos Supporters Association, there is actually a London Scholars Independent Support Association. We started that last year with help from Pat Kluski, who was the CEO at the time. Pat has since gone on to be CEO at Featherstone Rovers, and good luck to him for that. But we are continuing with the meetings first Wednesday of every month at the Brie Louise in Euston. So if anybody out there fancies a few beers from 7:30 onwards, having a chat, we'll be stood outside, getting a bit cold. Now winter's coming, but it's about rugby league in general and the sports at London Scholars specifically.
One little thing, Phil again, one little thing touching on what Steve said. When you've got the club captain who's absolutely chuffed to bits to be recognised by the supporters, it really shows how far the club has moved away from the supporters and how much the club needs to engage with the supporters to really get the whole thing going again.
And now we have any of the business. I'm going to hold the microphone out in front of me, and if you want to chip in, you can come and chip in.
I just want to sort of bring up about playing on Sundays, and I can only say one really good thing about playing on Sundays. It's going to, it can be difficult for the transport thing, but the one good thing is a lot of amateur rugby league is played on Saturdays, and I want people to go out there and watch the clubs in London. So we're all
to watch the amateur clubs.
The amateur clubs in London, yeah. Southwest Chargers. Whoever else is out there, who'll be in the league next
There's
year.
plenty of them, believe me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I used to go down to Greenwich when Greenwich had a team, seen them down when they played at Woolwich, seen them down at Eltham, different places. But that's one good thing we could do as supporters, get us faces around these grounds, and it might say, look, these London Broncos supporters or London Rugby League supporters do care about the game, and it's about. We might be able to ease things between the clubs, the main clubs, and the amateur clubs. Saying, look, I went to see such a team, under 16, something great young player there. Go and have a look. And that will really improve the rugby league in London.
No. Going on to what Mr. Juby said, I totally agree with you. Phenomenal. One thing I do wish for the season ahead, I think we need a season launch. London Broncos, London Rugby League.
I'm pretty sure there is one in the planning.
No, let's wait and see. Just get everybody out in London.
I'm pretty sure there is one in the planning.
Let's make sure we do it. We've forgotten about it as fans. Get all the London fans together. No matter what your support club is, let's launch Rugby League passionately. Let's have a nice day out at Tower Bridge. Relaunch the club. It starts from there, doesn't it? That's what we need as London Rugby League. We need
watch this space.
Yeah.
Ramo, I think I speak for everybody. We want to enjoy our rugby league matches again. We haven't done so for a very long time. And if we've got one fervent wish, is that we enjoy going to games again.
Alan Elric again, Ian. All I want is basically the supporters, the club to be a little bit more towards the supporters. Let us know what's happening. Whatever we can do, we'll try and do. And we'll be right behind them for the rest of the season. And hopefully we'll have a great 2015.
I'd like to say, Mark Raymond here, London Broncos isn't a secret society. If you've ever thought about coming down and haven't bothered, come and join us. You'll be very, very welcome indeed. Come and speak to me, Mark Raymond. You'll come through and you'll have a great time.
They certainly won't be able to miss you, put it that way, Mark. Not on a match day anyway. Anybody else want to chip in anything before we finish?
I've been contacted by the club and they're supposed to be trying to set up a community-based endeavour at the Broncos. Slightly unfortunate, the first meeting's next Thursday, I think, the 6th of November in Bushey, Watford. Now, I've got my slight things. I wish them the sort of best of luck with it, but I think the club do need to remember it's London Broncos, not Watford Broncos.
But no, thank you all for coming along this evening. Thank you for all your comments as well. I'm sure this will be... these podcasts are always one of the most listened to podcasts that I do, so I should probably start talking less and start getting more of you guys on. So no, I really appreciate you coming on. The Broncos Supporters Association have done really well this year, I think, and I wanted to try and do something to recognise it at the end of the year. So what's been not a great year, but like I said before, I think the bottom out is done, and the club are on the way up again in certain directions. So much more to be done, but I think that there is a bright future ahead, and hopefully it starts in 2015. But thank you all for coming, and thank you once again for listening to another Rugby League Down South. Don't worry about me.